This is what people are worried about, because we have a big health crisis, we have a big obesity crisis, and we have the NHS is creaking under the weight of it all. And you say it's all about education, but education is a long-term project. People are looking for quick fixes. They want to microwave this problem and get it finished in a couple of minutes, and the label might be the way. That is the argument. Vanessa Sturman, is there an argument for a label?
I think there is an argument for labels, but I think it needs to be very, very well researched. I mean, as Priya was just saying, not all ultra-processed foods are the same. And actually, it could be beneficial for someone to be choosing a whole grain fortified cereal, so that cereals that's got extra vitamins in. We need people to see this nuance, and I'm not completely sure a label could do that, but if there was the right research into it, it could help, but we certainly know not all ultra-processed foods are the same.
And so what are the really bad ones? What are the ones that we should steer clear of? As you say, there's a lot of nuance here. I mean, on the other side of this, we get a lot of carrot botherers who come on very high-mindedly and judgmentally and say, why can't you make the time to cook? Why can't you cook properly? We get a lot of that. But then there's affordability of these foods are very often very tasty. Some people say, as I said, they're addictive, they're well marketed, they're well branded, and people are living hurried lives, aren't they? So there are huge, matters of societal complexity as well, Vanessa. But what's the bad stuff?
So, first of all, I do agree with you about the societal complexities that really need to be looked at. And we can't just say, well, don't eat that, go and eat carrots and cabbage instead, 100%. Foods that we do definitely want to be massively, massively reducing, that we know from the research, are things like ultra-processed red meat. We've known for years that they are a type 1 carcinogen. So they're in the same category as cigarettes in terms of their possibility to cause cancer. So those are the ones we really, really need to cut down on.
In what forms do they come then as ultra-processed food, that red meat? What are we talking about? We're not talking about meat per se. We're talking about meat. Go on, tell me.
We're talking about things like our bacon and our sausages. And then even red meat that's not processed is considered a type 2 carcinogen. So that's not anything like the same category as type 1, but still very important that we cut down. But certainly things like your sausages and your bacon, please be very, very, very careful with those. But we do know that switching to the plant-based version can be much better for your health.
So a carcinogen is a carcinogen, and if we have warnings for carcinogens on cigarette packets, why not warnings for carcinogens on sausages?
I wouldn't be averse to that at all in those categories for certain. And if people want to have some of those, they can, but it's so important to educate people on, well, what could you have instead? Because there's a lot of misinformation about the plant-based versions, and people are looking at those and saying, well, those are ultra-processed, so I should stay absolutely away from those, when we know that could be a really healthy switch for people.
Christopher Snowden, how would you feel about a label on your sausage?
I don't really see the point. I think there are better ways of informing the public than putting labels and everything. I think if you label every food that could potentially cause heart disease or stroke or obesity especially, you'd be labeling nearly everything, and the labels would just become meaningless.
Yes, but we have a real crisis on our hands, and something needs to be done.
Yeah, but the government can't control what people eat or how much they exercise. So, I mean, realistically, educating the public is the only way forward. And this study, in fact, is a very, very important piece of research because it shows that people on an ultra-processed diet can lose weight. These people were sent 4,000 calories. There was 2 groups, I should explain, randomized control trial. Half the people were sent 4,000 calories of minimally processed food, so that's food cooked from scratch, very basic. And the other half of the sample were given 4,000 calories of ultra-processed food. But crucially, the ultra-processed food and the minimally processed food, it all met the Eat Well Guide government guidelines. So it was nutritionally sound. And both groups lost weight. The minimally processed group did lose even more weight than the ultra-processed group. But the crucial thing is, these people could have eaten the whole 4,000 calories. They were not encouraged to eat a particular amount, but they didn't. And both groups lost weight. And so this idea that we've had going around for the last few years, there's some magical property that comes from food being produced in a factory by businesses and wrapped in plastic and sold in supermarkets, the idea that that's inherently weight gaining or unhealthy is being disproved by this study. It's a very important piece of research.
Priya, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. It did show that in both arms of the study, people lost weight. People who were eating the less processed diet lost more weight, and they also lost more fat mass. So I think that that is quite substantial, because generally when people are losing weight, they don't want to just be losing fluid, they want to be losing fat. So I think it does show that you can definitely include ultra-processed foods in your diet, but we want to be going for having less processed foods, cooking more from scratch, and having more of those types of meals. And it also shows that following the healthy eating guidelines works.
How do we get there then? You talk about education. We need to be doing more cooking from scratch. And yet the whole direction of our society is going the other way, isn't it? It's not like the old days. It's not like having time, all sitting around a table, coming home at 5 o'clock from work, taking a couple of hours at the weekend to do a bit of batch cooking. All that's not how we live anymore. So how do you go into that time tunnel, Priya?
Well, I cook every day for a family of 8, and I must say we actually do that. We sit down.
Go you. You know, if you'll pardon my impertinence, go you. It's not like that for everyone. You cook every day for a family of 8. You know, whoopie-doo.
It's not like that for everyone, but it does mean that I have to not do other things in order to do that. So I think it is possible to make it happen. But I think we look at the number of people on social media who are searching for nutrition. We know that most of the younger generation, that's where they're going for their health information and for their education. So I think that's a really, really big place to be targeting and to be putting out really great content on how to eat, on nutrition education, and that could be a really great way of educating people.
How on earth do you find the time then to cook for a family of 8 and to be a professional dietitian and nutrition consultant as well? I mean, how do you do it? Where do you find the hours? Because a lot of people will be thinking...
It doesn't have to take a lot of time to cook. I think people expect it's going to take you hours and hours, but it can literally take you 15 minutes if you're organised and you've done some prep at the weekend. So I don't cook meals that take me ages and take me lots of time. I'm cooking very fast, and I'm making sure that I've got all of my ingredients prepped and I've planned ahead.
I want to put that one out there. Is that the way to go? Do we need to do that? Are people not making the time, not taking the time because they don't understand this stuff, because they're too lazy, because they're too busy, because they don't have the facts? Wow, that's incredible. And obviously you enjoy it as well. That's the thing. It's the love of it, isn't it?
Well, I do enjoy it, but I also get that some people don't enjoy it. And yeah, I absolutely understand that there are many, many barriers to this, including cost, including time. But I do think it is important that we start encouraging people that you can make meals in 10, 15 minutes, that they can be nutritious, that you can cook in bulk and then have something ready for the next day, for a day that you're feeling super busy. And we can also include some ultra-processed foods into our meals, but then other homemade ingredients in. So we're actually helping to balance that out.
Well, Vanessa, do you make the time for this as well?
I do take time to prepare food. I don't have a family to cook for, and I completely accept that for many people, they may not know how to cook. They may not have had the education to even prioritise it. But yes, I do a lot of cooking myself, but I don't necessarily cook every day.
What Priya's doing is amazing. It's amazing, isn't it? Family of 8.
Well,
and then...
You can. So if you have a family of 8, I think you will have to do a lot more every day. If you're one person on your own, you can have more things in the fridge that you've bulk cooked or in the freezer and just pull things together for meals because you're able to do that. So what I'm saying is that if you are 1 or 2 people, you can probably get away with not cooking every day. And that is really helpful for people to know that they can bulk cook and just have the same thing for a couple of days, get things out of the freezer. But you do need to put some time into your food and health every day if you want a good outcome. But it doesn't have to mean huge amounts of time. It could be chopping up fruit and putting it on your oats in the morning with a handful of nuts and some chia seeds. It can be quick things as well.
Go on, Priya.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. And I think we think of that really simple, easy meals, things like you can put a jacket potato in the microwave and you can top it with some baked beans and you can put some salad on your plate. You've got baked
beans are processed food, aren't they? I've been reading.
Well, I would say that actually they're not that bad for your health at all. So some people might say that they're processed. Some people might say they're ultra processed. We're really in a little bit of a quandary as to what fits into one category sometimes with these things. But they class as a portion of fruit and vegetables. We've got fibre, we've got protein there. So you can literally make meals in 10 minutes. But I completely agree with Vanessa. You have to plan it. So I, on the weekend, will plan out what I'm having, what I'm cooking for the rest of the week and get myself nice and organised. It's boring. It takes time, it takes effort, but we know it's what works for our health. So if you're worried about your long-term health, nutrition is something that you do need to think about.
Tell us about your planning.
My planning, I will literally stand with my, stand in my kitchen with my meal planner, and I think through the week, I think through what days is it that I need something quick, and I might need to pull a bolognese out of the freezer on those days. What days have I got more time? And I'll plan in things like what protein we're having on one day. So what days are we having white meat? What days are we having red meat? What days are we having fish? And I also have to think through all the different likes and dislikes of my children. And I actually find now it only takes me about 10 minutes to do that, and I might note some recipes down as I go. But I'm quite experienced at doing this. I've been doing it a while. So I'd also say to people, just go for the quick wins. Go for the things that you know how to make. At the weekend, perhaps cook something in bulk that then you can portion up and pop in your freezer. And don't be too hard on yourself, because cooking does take time to learn, but it is a great skill to have.
We don't learn it anymore. Do you have a microwave?
Yes, I most certainly do. And it's really things up. So I will have leftovers for my lunch, for example, some days, heat them up, or I might defrost something in the microwave, use it all the time.
Rory and Fife from Carlos in Hampshire. Hi, Rory. Hi, Carlos. Carlos, you go first. Hi there. Have you got the time? Do you make the time?
I try to avoid ultra-processed food whenever I can. As I was saying to the researcher, if I go into a supermarket and I see, let's say, a lasagna at $1.99, I'm in a position financially that I can pay a bit more for food. And if I see a lasagna in another supermarket at $4.99 or $5.99, I know what one I'm going to pick, because I think at $1.99 is going to be stock full of UPF ingredients, emulsifiers and flavourings and God knows all what. I think there's another thing here, Nikki, that we forget about. The human gut. What we swallow every day goes down into the gut, and I'm no expert on this, but I've read a little bit about it and heard interviews. Microbiomes work on the food that we swallow. So when we put something into our gut, the microbiomes, which are part of the lining of the gut, as I understand it, they start to extract goodness, etc. And they are now being bombarded with ingredients, things that, 25 years ago, the microbiomes didn't have to deal with. And if you think of this evolution, we're giving our gut strange things to deal with that they haven't had to deal with before. And I think stomach linings can be destroyed. There's a lot of research going on about that, with what they've done with mice who've been fed UPF foods and mice that have been fed normal food, and when they're analysed, the stomach lining is being eroded, etc. I think that's a whole other aspect which is very, very, it's very, very important.
I think it's very important. And Priya, you can come back in here on the microbiome problem, because it's an excellent thing to say there from Carlos. Gut health problems, no fibre, look, too many emulsifiers. I like Carlos. I'm no expert on gut microbiomes, but I would imagine there's all sorts of digestive issues. Might I say, even at this time in the morning, irritable bowel syndrome as well, all that stuff.
Absolutely. Our gut microbiome can be very much influenced by what we're eating. And there is evidence that shows us that having a diet that is higher in plant foods, so we're thinking fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, is definitely better for our gut health. And so if we have a diet that is solely processed and ultra-processed foods, it's not going to be great for our guts. And I found it really interesting looking at this study we've been describing, because it said that the mean intake of people before they did this study of UPFs, it was 67% of the calories that they ate in their day. And that is a huge amount of ultra-processed foods to be eating. And I think that if you eat like that on a regular basis, it is going to have an impact on your gut health. It is going to impact your microbiome, which is all those microbes that are living in your gut that do really good things for you. So definitely switching over to a diet that contains more plants is going to be a really great thing.
Christopher Snowden, listening, hang on a second. Christopher Snowden, head of lifestyle economics at the free market think tank Institute of Economic Affairs. Christopher, listening to all this, some people might be listening. I mean, PriyaTube, absolutely brilliant. And Vanessa, they're professionals and they take the time to cook and they know how to cook and they're calling for education. But it would be easy for some people to be listening to this stuff and to be feeling somewhat inadequate, Christopher.
Well, I'm feeling inadequate because I don't do any of it. I basically live off ultra-processed food, and the only reason I'm not obese is I try not to eat too much of it. But again, that kind of is the lesson of this study. One other interesting aspect of this study is that the group who were on the minimally processed food found that their food tasted worse than the people who were on the ultra-processed diet, and several of them actually dropped out of the study before it completed, and it was only a 2-week study. But several people eating minimally processed food dropped out of the study. Nobody in the ultra-processed food group dropped out of the study. So this food is considered to have better flavour, to taste better, also be more convenient and easier to prepare. And now those things might not matter to some people in public health, but they're very important to the rest of us. You've got to have a diet that you can adhere to. And I think the lesson here is that you can buy so-called ultra-processed food from supermarkets. You can buy food wrapped in plastic that was made in factories, so long as it's nutritionally sound. And there are plenty of nutritionally sound options on the shelves.
Rory and Fife. Good morning, Rory. We've got the authors of the study coming on a little bit later on. That'll be interesting. Rory, on you go.
Listen, ultra-processed food tastes fine, your previous caller said. Well, look, we set up a seaweed business in downtown Grantham in Edinburgh, which you'll know.
I can't hear a word you're saying. We're going to get a better line. We're going to get a clearer line, and then we'll be able to hear everything in perfect stereo. Andrew in Shipping Sudbury. Hello, Andrew. What do you think about this? Ultra-processed foods. Andrew.
Hi. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. That's good.
Yes. So I picked up the phone because your first speaker, I think, just after 10 o'clock said we shouldn't panic people and it's all about balance. We've changed our diet completely in the last 6 months, and we were put onto the book, Chris Van Tulleken's book about ultra-processed food. And once you've read it, you can't unread it. But the whole issue about labelling and keeping it simple, as I understand it, and again, I'm an average consumer, but as I understand it, one of the biggest issues is that our foods are packed with seed oil, and rapeseed oil in particular, and that causes inflammation in the body and is at the heart of a growing rates of disease, particularly in younger people. And we're not addressing that. And we've looked, since reading the book, we've also done a lot of research into seed oil, and it seems to be universal that a universal view that seed oil causes inflammation in the body and shouldn't be consumed. And I think Northern European countries, UK is probably the worst, consumes massive amount of seed oil because it's readily available and cheap. Whereas a lot of the Southern European countries their foods are based on olive oil. And I just think, if you to your point earlier, and I think your challenge back at the time was spot on about labelling. People haven't got time to read the label. But if we know that there's something, seed oil is a big cause of inflammation in the body, then we should be putting warning messages on food products that contain seed oils. And rapeseed oil, which I think some of the food producers have rebranded canola oil, just because rapeseed oil is becoming better understood as a problem.
It's rich in omega-3 and antioxidants.
So are many other things, but it causes, as I understand it, and I say I'm an average consumer, not an expert like some of the people you've got on the show, but it causes inflammation in the body, and inflammation is at the heart of triggering diseases and illnesses and cancers. And the rates of those illnesses and cancers are going up significantly, and particularly amongst the younger people. I think about my daughter's generation, so she's mid-20s, and where she's consuming, and we all are consuming massive amounts of seed oils as part of processed foods. And we shop in the supermarket like everyone else, and you buy a loaf of bread. And we went into that supermarket and looked at all the breads to see what contains 99% of the breads in the supermarket contain rapeseed oil. 99% of the food the ready meals that you buy off the shelf contain rapeseed oil. If it's proven that rapeseed oil in particular, but vegetable oil, seed oils more generally, it's not
inherently bad for you, though, is it? I'm not speaking up for the, what do you call it, canola oil industry.
Can I just come in?
Priya, come in. Hang on.
I completely disagree. It is not proven that seed oils are dangerous. It is very much talked about. A lot of that comes from America, actually, and a lot of that comes across on social media, but it is not proven. If you speak to somebody who actually has read the research and is a dietitian or a nutritionist over here, you will hear the information that actually, whilst it's been vilified and has been accused of contributing to inflammation and chronic diseases, that is not backed by solid science. Seed oils can be very nutritious. As you said, they've got monounsaturated fats in them, and they can actually be really great in our diet. And we need to be trying to combat this tide of nutrition misinformation that's out there. I do this on a daily basis, and it's just really frustrating.
There's a lot of conspiracy stuff going on when it comes to nutrition.
Well, is that true? Because from reading Chris Van Tilliken's book, I came away.
He's not a nutritionist, dietitian. He does not have a qualification in that. I've read his book, and there's some really great bits in his book, but there's also some bits that I don't agree with. And if you read the research on seed oils, all of my colleagues will back this up, that actually they are really nutritious. They are not dangerous. They are not bad for our health at all.
I wonder.
Yes, I completely agree with that as well.
Well, it's interesting that there are lots of theories here and lots of, absolutely legitimate concerns, and there's a little bit of scaremongering going on. It's all part of the recipe, isn't it, on this one? That's for sure. Andrew in Chipping Sudbury, what do you think, Andrew? Oh, no, that was Andrew in Chipping Sudbury.
That's me.
I don't know what's wrong with my brain, too much seed oil or something like that. Here's a text. I'm screaming at the radio at this woman. Oh, Priya, I think they mean you. Do you mind if I read this? It's quite fun. I'm currently supporting my son and daughter-in-law who have a 4-year-old and 18 months. I cook for them whenever I can, and they do their best to cook from scratch, but they both work, and their weekends are so precious that for sure they do not want to spend their weekends cooking. They're spending time with their kids in parks. They're cycling. They don't want to be cooking at the weekend. They eat minimal processed food. But can your guest just get real, please? Does she work?
Yes, I do. I run 2 businesses and my husband works too. And I take my kids to the park at the weekends. I am talking about spending an hour at the weekend doing some food prep. And I get my kids involved as well, so they get to learn how to cook. They get to learn how to make their snacks that go in their packed lunches. They get involved at cooking after school as well, so we'll sometimes take it in turns. In fact, this summer holidays, one of my big aims is to get some of the kids knowing how to cook certain meals so that they can do this job and they can help out.
There we are. Another one says, haven't got time. Put down your phone and stop scrolling then. So a variety of views, a variety of opinions. Final thought before we go to the news. Vanessa Sturman, I'm sure you've been listening with great interest.
Yes, indeed. I think we do need to realise that some people don't have this built into their lives. They don't have the education. If you're brought up...
They should. That's what we're hearing. They should have it built into their lives.
They absolutely should. What we need to do as well is go step by step. So if you're thinking, goodness, I can't start cooking, I don't know what I'm doing, start just building more fruit and veg onto each plate. Start building that handful of beans into whatever it is that you're cooking or onto your toast. Make it small steps. Building in that fibre, more nutrients is going to be beneficial if you do it every day, because we can't change everything all at once.
Yeah, so basically it's small steps, but we need to affect massive culinary cultural change, don't we?
We absolutely do. There are so many things we need to change, and we know that the health crisis isn't just about people not being able to cook. We know there's cost of living, accessibility, socioeconomic factors. So all of these need to be addressed together.
Yeah, but people who are poorer doesn't mean that they don't make the time, some people, to go to get some vegetables and cook an amazing meal. So we've got to be very careful about labelling, as it were, here, haven't we, Vanessa?
We do. Everyone's in a different situation. Someone may not have much money, but may be very educated in terms of how to cook. Other people may not have much money at all. And even worse, they don't know how to cook. They're going to suffer more. So, of course, there's
some people might have a lot of money and be stuffing their faces with sausages.
This is also true. Some people might have a lot of money, but still not be educated on the health front. But if they do have more money, it's easier and quicker for them to get healthy than someone who doesn't.